We are back. We are back after Christmas, right? It is what the
Hello.
28th, and as you probably guessed, I'm here with Carlo. Um, it's a couple of days after Christmas. We've had all the fun, the festivities, and now we're into the downtime that is that kind of weird. Is it a week between Christmas and New Year's? Is it like it's meant to be a week, isn't it? And it just is like kind of blends into like 3 days, or maybe it's more. And there's some
Quite
sleeping,
quite a long 3 days.
yeah, just some sleeping, some drinking, and some eating in that period. Cool. Uh, yes, George, you missed last week. If you're missing the hair, it all went last week, and with it my powers
It
apparently.
hasn't magically grown back in a week, unfortunately.
No,
No, that took him many months to grow. That wonderful
basically
that
nine
wonderful top.
9 months of growing that was, and all gone in a flash. Um, okay then, so we are on to the final Tourney Ground of 2020. We are looking at what 23rd week of doing this now, the 23rd week, so nearly half a year we've been doing this particular show, and it will obviously continue into next year, as far as I'm aware. COVID, COVID
Seems
is
as Mickey
still
loves
going.
it so much, you can tell today Mickey's absolutely loving it,
I
loving
am.
life.
I am absolutely loving life. I'm tired. I'll be honest with you. I'm tired. I'm tired and I'm a bit fed up, and we'll get onto why I'm fed up in a minute. But we'll keep it positive. We'll keep it positive where we can. Um, so the obvious thing we'll talk about first of all, the massive holiday update from Simon. Carlo, I know you spoke about the rule book in your own stats chat. Go check it out. Videos down here, somewhere on the side over here somewhere. Anyway, um, stats chat covered most of the rules. Just a very quick summary. The rules, I think the rules are looking a little bit more polished. They're looking a bit kind of tighter. There's still some problems, and I think you highlight those problems quite well, but they are, on the most part, a step in the right direction. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that's kind of like the theme of a lot of this update for me, was it was steps in the right direction. But if there's a staircase and you're only taking a couple of steps, there's still actually quite a long way to go. Um, so there is still some things there. Now, did you actually end up looking at the units at all?
Not in the discussion. I mean,
No.
I've had a brief glance.
You had a brief glance
A
at
brief one.
units. Go on, Will. I'll quickly bring them up, just so that anyone who has not seen them, because you're living under a rock like me over the Christmas period, hasn't seen them, can see them now. Um, it's interesting. It's interesting. I think there's some nice control piece. I mean, Cersei's just not Cersei anymore. She's completely different.
Yeah,
Um,
way different. Way different.
yeah, but I mean, tutor,
Some people might
card
be really
tutor.
upset that Cersei's changing. Some people really liked the extra effect that she had.
Hmm.
I was meh, like meh about it. Her current ability, her old ability, whatever we want to call it, current, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, as a Lannister player, nah, it wasn't something that I played into. Yet actually, I recently played a game against. I played a pair of games actually. I played back-to-back games in two different tournaments against Death 1942. And he played Lannisters in both games, and he had Cersei. I'm pretty sure he had Cersei in both games. In one of them, we had mute NCU because it was Dance with Dragons, and I muted Cersei because actually she was going to have a big impact on the game.
Hmm.
Um, because obviously the power in that game mode is that she would have allowed him to force through making me drop the token. Um, so she definitely had a role, past tense, future tense. We'll see how powerful her new one is. Gaining tactics cards has always been known to be powerful abilities, but it really depends on whether or not those specific cards, because she's not drawing random cards, she's drawing specific cards. Turns out going to depend massively on whether or not those specific cards are good, whether or not
Yeah,
you want
definitely.
them.
Definitely. But I mean, card tutors like this are always good. Like knowing that you can when you need to claim her. You can just be like, right, I want that card for later in the turn, or I need that card, or I want that kind of effect. So that's effective. It
Yeah.
also allows you, if the cards aren't particularly good, it actually allows you to discard them and redraw for other things
Yeah.
at the end of the turn, and then you
Yeah.
can always just bring them back if you need them.
Can just like thin your deck with it. Just
Yeah.
like pull them out of the deck just to like burn them and just be like, all right, I'll draw something better.
Yeah. And that's what you would do if they were bad. So we'll see. We'll see, obviously,
Yeah.
how that goes. But yeah, Lannister. I mean, the other obvious change here is set for charge now works in the flank, which
Is a bigger change than it sounds like. Actually, I heard some
yeah,
people saying, like Lannisters the halberdiers are still bad. Like, why would I ever want to use them? Then they're talking about the amount of damage that. So halberdiers' weakness has always been that on a 4+ hit, even with an okay amount of dice, it's like you charge me, I just roll some dice, and I'm probably not going to be able to kill a rank. Right? I don't kill a rank, and therefore, why did I even bother attacking? Like, what difference did it make? But actually, the stealth bonus of it is that, as far as I'm aware, you charge me in the flank, I attack first, I align to face my front to you, and you don't get flank bonuses anymore.
yeah.
Is it worth it? Nah, I'm still not saying they're good, but it's a stealth boost. It's something. It's something.
And the thing is, I think the big difference is, it's not so much that the ability to attack. I mean, it's the ability to attack, right? The thing is that in there's the opportunity to do a panic test because of the attack. And if you're and like, in my understanding, yes, panic damage has actually been reduced by 1 wound across the board, but actually initiating a panic test at all, I think, is going to be good.
Yeah. Particularly in Lannisters, we assume that their deck's going to have some things to force through damage, right?
Yeah, we do.
Huge and unnecessary. I assume you're talking about the halberdiers there Sunday. Yeah, maybe. Like, it's weird. They've become like really. I still just don't think any defensive ability is as strong as you think it is, because your opponent has to choose to let you activate defensive abilities. All defensive abilities require your opponent to say, I'm going to do this. And either they just don't know the game very well and they don't know that you're about to do it, or they know that you're about to do it and they've made the decision that it's not going to do enough that they care about it, and they're going to allow you to do it anyway. That's why all defensive abilities are never quite as good at a high competitive level than aggressive abilities are, because aggressive abilities, I'm just like, I'm going to do it when I feel like it. Defensive, you only get to use it when your opponent allows you to use it.
Now, interestingly enough, with assuming literally no tokens and no counterplay, so this is just 7 dice hitting on 4s, and then I'm assuming like a 4+ or 5+ Sama save here, which is kind of after the Asundering effect. So it's a 3+, 4+ of what's being used to charge in. Your average wound amount is about 2. You're going to probably do 2 wounds with the halberdiers on the attack, which is going to be initiating a panic fail or a panic check at least, which if you can push a fail through, even if there's like the opportunity to do like +1 damage or something, there's not unreasonable odds for you to remove a rank from an enemy, which is something at least. So I think that is got to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I think that's true. And 4+ is actually like it's a dice roll that can hit big. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
If you roll enough dice and they're 4+, there's no reason why that couldn't be 5 hits. Yes, it averages at like 3.5, but like there's nothing that stops it from being 5. Also, nothing that stops it from being like 2 hits. But you could be talking a rank worth of damage, but we'll see. We'll see where the rest of the faction falls out, whether or not the 6 points becomes valid, whether or not they're good on their own, whether or not a 1-point attachment can really push them into being like super viable. We'll see. I'm thinking that the guardsmen that I've looked at look
just as good, if not better, for 5.
Way more utility, way more useful. They have the kind of defensive ability which it's good enough such that your opponent isn't like, oh yeah, I'll let you use that. It's like, God, I don't want to attack that unit, like, ever.
And the thing is here, and Sunday says, which we'll come onto the game modes in a little bit, but actually the significant buff to slower units because of wider, generally speaking, wider deployment zones, means that these slower units that are typically more defensive have actually been buffed hugely in that regard. So, yeah, we'll come on to it in a little bit, but there is a reasoning in my thoughts processes here that you talk about defensive units being defensive units on the whole have been buffed. I think defense has been buffed in general to try and like lower the alpha strike effect. But the problem is if you lower everyone's alpha strike effect and buff up everyone's defense at the same time, like before, alpha strike was just better than defense. But if you do both, you end up tipping the scale. And if you tip the scale too far, you'll end up in this weird situation where you actually can't kill things fast enough. Yeah. So if you reach like the objectives first, you just win.
Rose Knights across the table and nothing else.
Yeah, exactly.
Just Wardens and Rose Knights, and just whoever got to the token first wins.
Exactly. But we'll see.
I mean, it won't be that. But that's the extreme that we might end up with. You know, that could be the new best way to play. You'll have to wait and see.
Now this next one.
Under 4 points. Ha!
Yeah.
Suck on that.
Get wrecked.
The
effect is.
I think either they do all right, or this is just going to be the get wrecked Starks balance change. Like.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right. I think we'll be all right. But I think there's going to be units that we haven't seen previewed yet. I think Starks are going to be carried by units we haven't currently seen.
Yeah, I really hope that Grey Axes become good again. Make Grey Axes great again.
I think Grey Axes are going to stay at 7.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing the Berserkers to 6 is clearly a move to allow them to differentiate their role. Because as long as they both carried the Umber keyword and were supposed to be like damage dealers and were 7 points, how do you ever make Great Axes and Berserkers 2 different things without one just being the better choice in nearly all situations, which is what Berserkers were. People weren't fielding Great Axes ever because it was like, I could take Great Axes or another unit of Berserkers. All right, another unit of Berserkers.
Exactly. Great Axes, with the slow movement as well, they didn't play into the way the meta played.
No.
Now, interestingly,
movement 6 on the Berserkers. Whew.
Yeah. Interestingly, of course, now that they've reduced these to 6 points and the Berserkers stay at 7, the Great Axes stay at 7. There's a chance that the Great Axes will have more viability because of the slower movement game mode kind of preferences, which we've just talked about. So there might be some
armor being more of an issue for people. High armor units being just like actually a new thing that Starks have to worry about, rather than something that they're just like, yeah, there's another unit I'll kill.
Yep. My favorite change.
I do. I know I shouldn't hope. I know I should hope for a perfectly balanced game and all these things, but I hope that Starks get the right shit end of things. mostly, the real reason I hope that is that I want to find out who really are Stark players and who just like them who just liked winning. Who liked winning. Then we'll see all the people jump ship over to these other factions, and we'll see who actually, and who really liked Starks, and and the people who love Starks can go back to playing Starks because they love Starks and not feel bad about the fact that they play them and that they want to use direwolves, So I hope that they're just below the curve, just below the power level, so that we can see who's really in it for the long haul.
Definitely. I agree. I mean, as a free folk player, and has been free folk player since I started the game, you know Carlo full well.
A power player.
Yeah, totally a power player. From day one, a power player, totally. But the point is that I've seen more like free folk rise in popularity, and actually, the more I've seen them rise, the less people I've actually seen them play well. Actually, is the irony. But yeah, I'm actually kind of like stoked to see everyone leave free folk for a while and go and do other things, because they were a great faction. I loved playing them when no one else did. Not because they were broken, because they were fun. Now they're just sad. So no, the big change that I like is Sansa actually not being any time, because I absolutely hate this thing that you can just at any time look for a card. Like that's just not fair.
Anytime is not a good trigger.
Yeah,
anytime should not exist as a trigger in the game.
No, it's just not. It's not a fair thing to have. not for such a powerful ability as well. Just just get any card you want. And they changed it to be any card you've already played, but it was still good. um, Interestingly,
Yeah, that is the bartender. Says that he's invested too much. I'm as always semi talking about TTS. We'll see who continues to play Starks on TTS or whatever. But also we'll see who just like bought Starks just because they wanted to win their local tournament, and who suddenly turns up with a new army which also isn't painted. says guy who turns up without painted armies. But I love the army itself. Doesn't mean I'm going to paint it.
You bought everything anyway, so I mean...
I got one of everything. I have one of everything, and I've still never used Starks. There you go.
Use them in a practice game once. Anyway,
I've played Starks only when I was requested to play Starks.
There you go.
And the game
there was a huge debate over whether Berserkers are they worse than what they were. There was such a big debate about this, right? And I'm gonna bring this up because I stopped posting on the main Discord. I stopped posting on most of the Discords because I was just kind of fed up with the discussions that were being had. Not aimed at anyone here. It's just I particularly wasn't enjoying the kind of discussions that we were having to have over what we see. I decided to build a very simple thing on Excel, but purely so I could work out the number of hits a general unit would strike with and the number of wounds, because I always used to get asked by different people on the main Discord, but how effective is this or how effective is that? So let's move this out of the way just a second. So
this is going to be great content. Stick around for it.
It's really not. This is maths, but I was just fed up with it. You look at modern Berserkers or old Berserkers, and it was like 8 dice to hit on 3s, wasn't it?
8, 9, 10, yeah.
Yeah, 8, 9, 10. And we have to assume they always re-roll.
That crazy 8, 9, 10 profile.
It's absolutely mental. They're always re-rolling on the hit. And the average armor save, even if they're going to a defensive unit, you can put a 4+ when you consider there. So the total wounds is 3.5 on average. Right? And that's with just the charge re-roll and nothing else taken into account. If there's any crit blow, if there's any precision put on them, if there's any vulnerable token on the enemy, that goes up. The point is they're taking off a rank relatively commonly on average before you even take into a panic test. That was okay, but that was on their least effective dice roll. You pump them up and you start giving them Roderick crit blow. You're looking at you're looking at half a unit dead before you even do the panic. So yeah. Anyway, maths lesson for you. Modern Berserkers won't do that. They just won't do that, and in some ways I'm glad that they won't.
People. Okay, so the discussion is: are new Berserkers worse than old Berserkers? It's complicated because they've moved from 7 to 6, right?
Yeah.
Plus we're talking about offensive units becoming less powerful.
Yeah.
Becoming less powerful in general. So you have to gauge that against it. But it's as simple as this. If they didn't get worse, then Starks are still basically the best faction in the game.
Yep.
Because Starks were being propped up by Berserker spam, supported by Direwolf spam. Yep. They were so obscenely good value at 7 points that they best have gotten worse. They have to have looked at it and gone, they're too good, let's make them a bit worse. Did they go too far should be the question we're asking, not did they get worse. If you think that they didn't need to get worse, then you haven't been watching competitive A Song of Ice and Fire for the past year at all, ever. Practically every winning tournament has some Berserkers in it.
Yep.
So
yeah, completely agree. Yeah, completely.
Let's hope they got the right amount worse.
That's the thing.
And they looked about right to me.
Yeah. Now,
it's about right.
The Night's Watch changes. This has got me a little bit worried. And they've pushed this eliteness to the next level here, I think. But with the changes, with the changes to the vow mechanic, so you can stack infinite vows, effectively infinite vows anyway, and the way that we see the Watch Captain for 3 points giving an action, basically the Watch Captain I think is going to be similar to the Unsullied commander. I think that we're going to see
better, right?
Yes, effectively, he's just better. I
You
think,
think the Unsullied is going to get better too?
yeah, I think the Unsullied has to get better. If the watch captain for 3
You'd
points
hope
is
so.
this,
You'd hope so. By direct comparison,
yeah,
he's this guy with less for
yeah,
the same price.
exactly. So the Unsullied captain is going to be something similar, I think. But the point is that the watch captain and Swarm Brothers here, this is now a 10-point unit if you look at it just as those two things. It's a 10-point unit that has a free move as an activation or a free attack as an activation, and then has its own extra activation, and on any of those attacks can re-roll attack dice, and is still attacking with boldness and courage on those 8 dice, or at the rank higher than what it was. They lost Crit Blow, which I'm so glad about, because Crit Blow, let's face it, was... I've always hated Crit Blow because it's such an... It's a high variance ability. You might not roll a single crit blow and might not get any hits, and then you're just doing like 0 damage, or you get every single dice roll as a crit blow, and you're hitting with like 17, 18 hits, and it's like, you're dead. And the two are very, very different.
So they did speak about the fact that Night's Watch is supposed to have the best attachments. So it is possible that they just have a better variant. It's not impossible for that reason, but
you can't. The
maybe
balance
they're
is
getting better at it. But like they've spoken, Michael has openly been like, this army does this, and then you look at the rules and you're like, I see how you tried to do that, but no, you didn't achieve it. Like in reality, competitively speaking, the army doesn't do that. Nobody fields it in that way. It does something totally different. So yes, they might have the best attachments, and either they're just going to have more abilities and stuff like that. Even if they are the best, they might not necessarily get used. It might be that they're the only faction who starts using them. You know what I mean? Like, because attachments really aren't seeing a lot of play. He could work. I think attachments are cool. I'd still prefer named attachments to be the cool thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I still want named attachments to be a thing that we're like, that's cool. I'm going to use this cool character in this unit that is somewhat thematically fitting rather than in this totally random unit. And for that to be something worthwhile. That would really bring a Song of Ice and Fire, the books, to life as opposed to just like a strategy game.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, I did see on the perusal of Discord, I did see a 10 activation Night's Watch list that uses 2 Watch Marshals, a Ranger Tracker, I think Othel, and then 2 units of Swarm Brothers, Othel and Amon or something like that, and then 2 units of Swarm Brothers with Watch Captains.
Easy.
And I think there's another 4-point NCU in there as well. And actually, hang on, it's like, oh, we want to get rid of activation spam. You didn't.
But have they said that they want to get rid of activation spam?
No, they haven't.
No.
They haven't directly
said that. They haven't said it. No. Like,
but everyone thinks they have, but they haven't. That. So
exactly, like, people assume because of the fact that we've pretty much proven that activation spam is the problem with the game. People assume that's what they're fixing. We haven't seen any changes to Direwolves. We've seen recent solo additions basically just giving other factions extra activations, and we're seeing attachments giving extra activations, all while we see the ability to take away an attachment's abilities disappearing. So your ability to remove that spam is going away while they pump up the ability to do it. I'm not saying it's a problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, people seem to be assuming that activation spam is going away.
I don't really think it is.
What I've seen, I don't see it. You know, like, I'm seeing units without attachments like Guard becoming more viable. Yeah. That means I'm more likely to run a load of 5-point units without having any attachments in them.
And you know, Weasel mentions there, the nature of war games, activation advantage is just a thing, and designing it out of the game is very difficult. It is impossibly difficult to some extent. But yeah, 3-point NCUs are going away. That Jesse's saying there, yeah, 3-point NCUs are going away, and that's
true.
A step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think they hate the 3 NCU versus 3 NCU game. I think they don't hate the high activation game. It's funny, actually,
Yeah.
when we speak about it like that. The first thing that we started talking about when NRG first tournament came along, and I started writing like really comprehensive stats articles on the results from these TTS tournaments. When we saw loads of really big, good metas come together, the first thing we used to discuss was the 3 NCU meta, the 3 NCU versus 2 NCU meta. And then people soon started to realize, we started to realize, I started to realize, everybody started to realize that 3 NCUs is a symptom of people wanting more activations, not a symptom of them wanting more NCUs. And NCUs being the cheapest way to achieve that. So then people don't really talk about 3 NCU meta anymore. We talk about high activation meta because the conversation just moved on. Now, Simon might still be trying to catch up from 9 months ago. They're trying to fix a 3 NCU problem when actually 3 NCUs is a symptom of high activations. And they've tried to fix NCUs when actually the problem was activations. You know, like, so it just makes me think when we talk about the conversation in that way, that the process that they also may have gone through, you know, and that they've tried to fix something, but they've said outright many times, many times that they work on these balance changes like a year in advance. So they're a year behind the discussion in terms of what's powerful.
Definitely. Interestingly, you know, and the watch captain says this watch captain is an activation for 3 points, which I believe is the minimum cost of an activation. But it ceases to become, oh, you buy an NCU for 3 points because it's the most effective thing you can do with 3 points. Well, now it's not. There are other things that you can do for 3 points, like the Watch Marshal is just a no-brainer for 3 points. You should just be taking him, to be honest. Like, you know, at least one, if not two, in the current meta. Because it's just a no-brainer, because it's the most effective thing you can do for 3 points. Is even more effective than some of the NCUs, to be honest, at 3 for Night's Watch, which is, of course, Craster. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion, an interesting way of looking at it. I hate this idea. This comes from my background of I think I spoke about it last week. I can't remember, but this idea of enforced meta. You know, we don't like the 3 NCU meta, so what we're going to do is we're going to disadvantage players who want to play that way. I've always hated that because it's what League of Legends did to Dota, basically. You know, Dota was played and you did whatever you want, strategy, whatever you want. You built teams around strategies and it worked. And to be honest, in Dota, any situation, any team lineup would work with a strategy. In League, they had this thing, but then it very much became there is a set way to play the game. And to the point where people were actually being banned and being like put into low priority queues and things like this from playing outside of the meta. Like, oh, I wanted to run 2 people top. Well, no, that's not what you do. You get banned. And it's like, that's an issue because now what you're doing is you're gatekeeping. You're saying you have to play the game the way we say you play it. That's my concern with them saying no at 3 NCUs being like nerfed in this way, because are they trying to do that indirectly, or is that the effect it's going to have? Hopefully it won't. I think there will be.
I don't think they're directly doing that. Lots of people, you know, proposed ways that they can reduce NCUs. Some people were literally like ban 3 NCUs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you know, some people were like increasing points cost and like all these sort of various taxes. They haven't done that. They've just slightly de-incentivized it by getting rid of the 3-pointers, which was a large part of what was propping up a lot of 3-point NCU things. You'll also see, I think we're going to talk about the game modes in a bit. They've again massively given a buff to on-field commanders, because NCU commanders were being were a large part of where a lot of factions got their 3rd NCU from, and because people felt it was so important, that made the the NCU commander the go-to choice for a lot of people. I think that it's better that they move to 4 points with the NCUs, because they've clearly shown that they're really struggling to find an ability that a 3-point NCU can have that people aren't just like, yes, that, I'll have it. And they're like, wait, no, we didn't tell you what the ability is. And people are just like, yeah, I don't care, I'll have it. You know, like, as long as it was a point less than the 4-pointer, they were like, I'll have it.
It's the comparative. It's the comparative effect.
Comparatively, it more than 75% of its effect is an activation and being able to take a zone on the tactics board. So whatever that last 25% of your points was to move from 3 to 4, people are like, I don't care. I don't need it. I'll take an extra. I'll take 2 3-pointers. Most people would take 3 3-point NCUs for 9 points every single day of the week before they took a 4-point and a 5-point. I don't care what your abilities on the 4-point and the 5-point are. I'll take them. Multiple people in the Discord have often said, give us a neutral 3-point NCU that has no abilities. And people are like, I'd buy it. And it's like, that's the exact problem. Like, unless you're going to make 3-pointers that have negative abilities on them, you can't balance NCUs at a 3-point cost when 4-pointers and 5-pointers exist. So I think it's a really sensible choice to just send them to 4 points. Send them to 4 points, give them a better ability.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Now free folk changes. Am I salty about this or not? Well, first of all, it's the change that we.
Of course you are.
So I'll get onto why I'm a bit
Because
frustrated.
you're a free folk diehard.
I'm a free folk diehard. But no, there's a reason why I'm so frustrated by this, actually. I think it's a fairly coherent reason. They've made raiders worse, categorically worse, right? They've gone up by a point, but now with the adaptive rules, so they get a point off everything. So they've made them categorically worse by saying that they're 4 points. You don't have to take them in pairs again. Slight buff there. They're giving them the cowardly effective. Fair enough. Cowardly is kind of like the price, I guess, you pay for insignificant. In some ways, that's probably fair. They've actually buffed their attack. They're now 654, where they used to be 653. So last rank is now better.
Hey, because units need to be effective on their last rank, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, because units have to be
effective. You've gone from 3 dice to 4 dice. Still effective. Everybody be scared of those last rank raiders.
Yeah. Now, the actual reason that I'm annoyed with raiders is this again feels like being pushed into a way of playing the game. Giving them adaptive is like basically saying, we just released a free folk attachment box that most people complained at seemed really, really bad value for money because no one ever uses attachments. So what we're going to do is make a unit basically only effective when it has attachments. And give it the discount. So for me, this is very much like a direct, even if it's not. Right? This is the thing. This could have been a change that, as Carlo said, it could have been working on 12 months ago, right? But it feels very much like the community went, why would anyone buy this box? And they went, well, we'll make a reason for you to buy the box by making this unit have to have one. And it's kind of like, that's a cash grab.
It's
like,
not that.
It's not that. It's not that, but it feels that way.
It's not that cynical.
Of course
it's not that cynical.
Of course
they're not. They're not trying to sell you attachments.
No.
No. They're not that petty. Not that petty.
No.
But it's exactly the same as the NCUs.
Yeah.
They couldn't work out how bad to make a 3-point unit. So they had to find a way to make them 4 points.
Yeah.
They had to. And so they basically said, here's a point in attachments. You got to go spend it. Go spend it on an attachment. Problem is actually they have to see a change. Surely they're going to see a change. They really have to see a change. Currently, you're just going to see skin changer spam go through the roof. Like every single raider in the whole game will have a skin changer. Yeah. They already did practically. Most people were already fielding raider spam with skin changers. Nobody's going to go, ooh, raid leader, he looks good. No, they're going to go, all right, I'll have a bear, or I'll have an eagle and a wolf, or, like they have so much utility. But Mickey, the reason you're frustrated by this and this card is because raiders got shat on. Like they got absolutely, like, they moved from 3 points to 4 points, and they're worse. They got both at the same time. They got made 33% more expensive and became worse for it. They got it from both ends. And they look very unviable right now by comparison to the other units. That for 4 points versus Lannister guards for 5. You're like, oh god, that's a horrible matchup.
And I think that's actually the difference, is that it's not that raiders per se, because bearing in mind, raiders, the Zerkers, there's discussion about them getting worse, but they are reduced points, therefore they should be worse. But it's the trade-off. Raiders are the only unit that we see on this entire lot of the previews that are just distinctly worse. They are just a much worse version of them is what we see presented here. Everything else is something that we've seen buffed. Now, the reason that frustrates me is because I am pretty sure we are going to see other things nerfed. I am 90% sure Lance Cavalry, in the way we know Lance Cavalry, is not going to be what we see anymore. Because if Lance Cavalry exists in the same way as it did used to be, then you are going to see Lance Cavalry a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
So the thing is that they've shown everyone a buff, except maybe the Starks. And then with the Free Folk, they've gone, oh yeah, here's a piece of shit. And it's like, I guess my issue being,
here's a third,
yeah,
and it's half of your army.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think that's the funny thing, is that even if you discount the actual the Free Folk kind of like meta spam style thing, there's a very different thing if you go, right, let's have a party and everyone gets a gift. It's like Secret Santa, right? Everyone gets a gift, except the gift you got was a pile of shit in a box. Aren't you happy you got a Secret Santa present? Well, no, of course I'm not, because everybody else got something better. And I think that's the difference, is that...
But Mickey,
I
they're
know.
top tier.
Yeah, I know they're top tier.
They're top tier. They
Yeah.
needed...
No,
They weren't allowed a buff.
I'm not saying that Raiders should have got buffed. That's actually not what I'm saying, but you should have shown a unit that would have been at least more sensible in the scope of all the other changes.
Francesco says they might make Free Folk attachments really, really good. I mean,
they might do.
Maybe the raid leader doesn't indicate it to me just yet. Like, he's not like, oh, that's a 1-pointer I really want.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 1-pointer who gives me back the abilities I just lost when I moved from 3 points to 4 points. Like, it's like, you're now 4 points and you lost these abilities, but you can have them back for that extra point that you lost. It's like, what? But hey, like, they got a rough deal. I don't see them. I don't see Raiders being the core of I don't see the Raiders being core of a Free Folk army anymore.
No.
And if they are, then Free Folk need to be looking really, really good in other areas. Otherwise, Free Folk are just not good anymore. Like, they're gonna go back to running away a hell of a lot. Cowardly on top of, yes, it's gone down to D3, but they're D3 plus 2. Everybody else is going to be able to push that up to make it D3 plus 3, 4, 5, D3 plus 4. Yeah, that's only an extra 2 wounds on two things on top. We've seen like Lannisters. You attack Lannisters and they've got 2 ranks left, then that's D3 plus 4 to the Raiders. That's half a unit from a test. Just straight up, you're gone. Like, back to the old days, which I liked. I liked it when Raiders ran away.
I remember losing a catapult. An enemy had a Night's Watch catapult, fired a rock at my Free Folk Raiders on the first turn, and my unit disappeared because I crit failed the panic or whatever it was, and it was like, this is a really fun and interactive game. And I think that's the difference.
Greg says that we're contradicting ourselves because they still have activation advantage. You just lost 33% of your activations. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's not a small adjustment. That's a lot less activations. But you're right. They still have some things. Raiders and their fighting potential was never really why they were taken. They were taken because they were 3 points.
Definitely.
We'll see.
I think we'll definitely see.
I'm scared for them.
The reason, I think we've missed the core reason of why I'm upset, I think, really, as well, is that I actually do think Raiders needed to be changed. If anyone actually chatted to me independently, I know me and you, Carlo, spoke about this, we kind of already knew the adaptive rule was coming because of a rumour that we heard like 6 months ago, right? We knew that the chances of them going up to 4 points was also very high. So me and Carlo aren't surprised by these changes. I even suggested on the main Discord that getting them an extra wound or an extra 2 wounds on a panic test would make sense. That would fix the insig spam. I think the big difference is we saw all of those changes happen, and then they lost one of their core abilities in themselves, Like, even if they just kept gang up, I would have been okay with that. But they didn't. They also lost that, and also it means raid leaders are gone. The raid leader effect, so the chaining of activations, which was one thing that never really got used, but was a nice concept, has disappeared. Yeah. So it feels like the actual identity of Free Folk is completely changing from what it used to be. Even though they're not directly saying that it should have been different, because before Insig spam was a thing, people genuinely used to run starter box Free Folk and chain activations and do fancy things. It didn't go well because we always used to run away.
Were bad.
Yeah, and Free Folk were Free Folk were bad.
Nobody won anything with them.
No,
yeah, they were bad. I do think
it's a weird one. It's a weird one for me.
Hopefully Free Folk will get some really interesting units. Followers of Bone, super nice models, could be really good. Bone Lord's Chosen, Giants, very thematic of their army. All these things, they kind of Thens see non-existent use currently, competitively. All of these things can, of course, make the new Free Folk viable. But it seems odd because the one true faction identity they had was to be a horde. And they were like the only army who were sort of supposed to be allowed to have activation spam. It was their core identity.
Yeah. They even have a card that allows you to maintain
that. Other factions actually did it better than them.
Yeah.
So
it is
anyway,
interesting.
We've laboured on this one for ages because Mickey loves Free Folk. So let's just leave him. There's nothing good to say here, guys.
Well, what it does show to me, actually, just as a little kind of like side point, is it shows me that things like the Thens are going to have to get buffed. Because at the moment, there is pretty much no reason I would take Thens into the new meta either, if they stay as they are. Because they're still crap in the new meta. So I think you'd expect to see something like the Thens buffed at least a little bit, because they'll get nerfed as well from the number of dice they roll on top ranks. You'd expect that.
Greg does have a good point. At least you managed to stay hitting on 4+, while everybody who was hitting at 3+ lost the ability to hit on 3+.
Yeah.
Like other units got offensively worse, and they didn't get offensively worse, but nobody bought them for their offensive ability.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually they did get offensively worse if you consider the main offense they had was the panic test. So, and that's actually decreased in value, and there are things that decrease it further. Anyway, Baratheons. Sentinels got fixed, I think is the best word.
They got Dragonstone Noble's order.
Well, you mean they got the ability Sentinel from the Sentinels that should have had it originally, you'd have thought. The Sentinels look good now, because I think this is how Sentinels should have looked originally, to be honest. I think they are a perfectly serviceable unit now. I don't really have much to say about them other than they are what they should have been.
But they have the maneuver, and it's not just a counter charge. It's very important. It gives them some viability. I think it's nice. I think it has more. We will see. We will see what happens to the new Baratheon deck, because I can tell you already from playing Dragonstone Noble, the amount of times that the Baratheons stack something on that trigger, that they want to do something with it, that you can't just have infinite number of things that you're only allowed to use one of in that trigger. Okay, so like a unit of Sentinels is viable right now. 2 is probably not. You're not going to get attacked often enough that you have enough times to trigger it each turn. And that is before you even consider that it overlaps with some of these really strong tactics cards that you have in your hand. So if the tactics deck itself loses that trigger, then they become way more viable. If the tactics deck has simpler, easier triggers to get off, then these guys look really good. If not, they're not bad, but you just got too much stacked into that trigger. It looks good in theory. I'd tell you from the reality of trying to play that specific order, it just doesn't happen as much as you want it to.
Yeah, definitely. Responding to chat there, I know Jesse's just said it sounds like the people we complained about when Wolves became worth 1 VP. I can see that. I can see why you'd think that. I think it's because I remember a time when Free Folk didn't use Raiders at all, and what happened was we used Cave Dwellers, and Michael Rumsbum proved that Cave Dwellers were oppressively good, and he ran them into a list tournament, and he kicked the living shit out of everybody. And what happened was that Simon went, oh shit, maybe Free Folk Cave Dwellers are too good, and so they got nerfed. And so Raiders became the next thing with the panic changes. Raiders became the next thing to go to. I remember the days pre 1.5 before the panic changes, when Raiders used to just run away, and the only thing we could do was invest our points in Cave Dwellers, and nobody is shouting about Cave Dwellers being OP right now, are they? So it's that's all it is, Jesse. I remember a dark day, and the change makes me look back at those dark days. Yeah, it does. Whereas Stark's never had a good dark day.
There's no respect due. Don't worry. We're just
no.
I'm just letting Mickey cry about his free folk more than he really should be allowed to.
There's no, because actually there's another thing I'm going to cry
with him
about more.
because free folk felt like something that I was close to playing. As one of the many factions I have, I was like, "Ooh, they're quite top of the list of something I might kind of want to get onto the table." Not because I'm like, "God, they're super powerful," but just because I look at them and I'm like, "That's a unit I want to use. That's a unit I want to use." And then eventually I'm like, "Hey, I've made a list," and then I'm like, "Hey, I want to put this on the table." Whereas right now, if you showed me those raiders, I'd just be like, which of my other armies do I want to use? So I can see how he, as a person who practically only plays free folk, is like, I've been fucked. You're right though.
Yeah, definitely.
We're talking about one unit here, which is why I generally try not to talk about changes in isolation when when the whole is what matters.
Yeah.
But if they're the average for free folk, then they're in trouble. And if not, then they're below the curve and they're not going to get played.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is that the other changes that we see have got to be good, and there've got to be some buffs elsewhere in the faction. So my question then goes back to what I said: why are we the only faction to show a direct nerf when there's clearly a buff that's coming? I've got no problem with being shown a nerf, but if you're going to show everyone a nerf at the same time, or show everyone a buff at the same time, don't show some people one thing.
Everybody, because everybody needs equal numbers, do they? Everybody.
No. Obviously, you can't do that. No.
We're not here for balance. We're here for everybody
just
to
random shit. Yeah,
everybody to have equality. Yeah, I think
because
isn't that something to do with equality and equity, or whatever the other word is.
It's weird that you should say that, because of course the faction we've seen the most units we've actually seen now are for Lannister. Lannisters, there is no equity at the moment. Lannisters have seen the most changes so far, and they've all been buffs, except maybe Cersei. There's power in there, but there might not be. Anyway, yeah, the Dragonstone Noble for 2 points.
That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of writing for 2 points. And you'll see that in a minute as well.
Even be better than the 3-point Night's Watch attachment, who's supposed to have the best attachments.
The difference is he gives a free maneuver or attack, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Iron Resolve, really good. We saw it on the Guard Captain. This is an ability that is worth 1 point. So what we're saying here is that Go Down Fighting and Stubborn Tenacity, even in fairness, faction advantages, this, that, and cross-faction comparisons, whatever, out the window. Go Down Fighting and Stubborn Tenacity are about 0.5 point each, give or take. That's what this says to me. But Iron Resolve is a really good ability. It's worth remembering now with panic changes, if you've got nothing to do with buffing panic damage, if you roll a 1 on the panic damage, Iron Resolve means you take 0.
And I wonder if you still failed a morale check. I guess you probably have.
You still failed the morale check.
You drop your token.
Yeah, you
take
would.
No wounds.
Yeah.
In a game mode like Dance with Dragons or whatever.
Yeah. But the reason I bring that up is that you take no wounds from failed panic checks. That's actually really important. It means that you have to work for all those wounds that you get, and I think that's going to be. I subtly think this is going to be a bigger ability than people think, but that doesn't mean you'd pay points for it. You wouldn't pay an attachment to have that, but I do think it's going to be way better than people think. Or alternatively, everyone has panic buff attacks.
Seems above the curve of old 2-point attachments. And that's good. We'll wait to find out where he fits, where he sits, what he does, whether or not people in the future are willing to pay 2 points for those kind of things. That's what they kind of didn't quite manage to get right in 1.5, which partly might have been, systematic of the fact that there used to exist a number of ways to turn those abilities off. Like an ability is worth a lot less if there are things that turn you off. If there are mission objective things in the game modes that just turn attachments off, then that's worse. Wilder, just turning your stuff off every other turn plus more, and Tywin and Lannister cards. If they've changed, then attachments already are worth more.
Mhm.
It's not a risk anymore to take an attachment because they might just lose their abilities. And then they're clearly saying to be worth 2 or 3 points, you have to have a lot more stuff going on. It's good. It's the right direction.
Yeah.
We'll see whether or not they went far enough or too far, or just got it mummy bear just right.
Yep. Shira is a weird one for 4. Obviously being up to 4 points from the 3, similar to all the other changes we've seen. But the money bags now, if you remove a token, you don't remove the token really. What you do is you take the token on you and you put it on an enemy unit. If you take the money bags now, which is used to be you just put any token on. So there's a slight nerf to the money bags take, but she also gets this crown, heal 1 wound.
Yeah.
It's a stealth buff to taking crowns, and it does synergize with what we know as Stannis' cards already, with his place 3 tokens crowns ability, right? Without any form of a picture.
I think she got worse.
Yeah, without the funny thing is,
she went from 3 points to 4 points, and she got worse.
Without any understanding of what the crowns is gonna bring for Baratheon, because I know it was a featured zone in the tactics deck before. So without knowing what crowns means to Baratheon,
sort of there. It's also sort of in Stannis' deck. Stannis supposed to be claiming the crown, so like he has some stuff with that. To Ariakas, we did speak about. So we sort of spoke about the move from 3 points to 4 points with the NCUs, that they were just being overused at 3 points. So yeah, sort of that. I also spoke about in Stats Chat that we haven't yet seen a 5 point, and we've seen a couple of 5 pointers become 4 pointers. Mm-hmm. It could be, it could be that all NCUs are going to 4, which I think would be good, because we saw 3 pointers get used all the time and 5 pointers almost never, except for Walder, whose ability was just considered worth it. It seemed like, people just took the cheapest NCUs they could and the best ones in each category. So you take all of your 3 pointers, and then once you've run out of them, you pick your best 4 pointers. And then you get to the end of your army and you've got 1 point left, and you turn something into something better because you've got a spare point, and it's better than buying an attachment because attachments are crap. If they were all flat 4 points, then that would be quite interesting.
It would be good. The issue is that you definitely end up running into a potential minefield of having to balance everything at 4. Because you're not balancing it.
You take away one of the dials which you're allowed to use balance things, because you can say, okay, you've got a really powerful ability, but you cost more. The problem was that the 3, 4, 5 were such massive break points that they weren't seeing the right kind of change in power level for each of them. Yeah. To be honest, the same with the old units. 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, they didn't really seem to understand what kind of difference you had to be at each of those breakpoints to be worthwhile. So we just saw 5s get spammed, and then like your odd 8-point unit, like Lance Cavalry, like your Berserkers with an attachment, stuff like that. Yeah. Rose Knights, like they would get fielded as much as possible while supporting with as many 5s as you can. But that's a segue.
So we see a change to Screamers. They get a much better. To be honest, I think this is just a much better ability. To be honest, it's a straight improvement for the 1 point. Reroll all attacks. Defender comes vulnerable on any attack. So you're talking about charge reroll kind of thing and vulnerable token. Way better than the Sundering that used to be there, because it's an order, so you can even use this on a disorderly charge, which is just better. Targs were always screwed over by disorderly charges. They always have been,
Yeah.
completely, and this navigates that somewhat, and I think that's great. Funny thing though, Screamer Co may only be attached to Targaryen units, so clearly there is a combination of a Screamer Co with perhaps bottom flame men or whatever. I can't remember what they're called now. Jesus, been so long. And or Zorses. There's clearly an interaction there that they don't really want to have available for Targ players, by putting that caveat on there that never used to be there. Illyrio, again, Buster 4, completely changes ability. There's no reactivation, which in itself is probably a good thing. In isolation, this change completely changes how dragons function yet again, because you don't have a press a button, get a reactivation on a dragon, and there's no 3-point NCU for dragon lists anymore. Mother Dragon's nerf, Mother Dragon's buff, don't know, we'll see. But it does restore 3 wounds. So that's a good thing to have if you've got dragons. Yeah.
3 wounds, which is really more like 6 with Fire Made Flesh.
Yep. And Jorah's changed.
Jorah the Explorer, look at him. He's fighting fit, this guy now.
Has he really gotten significantly better? He hits a bit harder because he hits on 3+. He used to hit on 4+, right, or something stupid.
He's got 3 wounds.
He's got 3 wounds, which makes sense. He's a cavalry unit. He should have had 3 wounds from day one.
Morale went to D3.
Yes.
Right? So, it used to be, he fails a morale test, he is dead. He had 2 wounds, and it did D3+1. It auto-kills him. Now, a morale only kills him a third of the time. His morale didn't get any better, but his resistance to morale running away is now 3 times as good as it was.
Yeah,
that's
definitely
pretty significant. Because he was 4 was not enough, particularly with the existence of Cersei and other cards like that. 4 was not enough for him to not just get crowns zapped off the table, and for it not to be like random chance, like crown. As we spoke about, crowns relatively weak zone. Choice. Crowns is left. See you, Jorah. And that was just the nail in the coffin. Like, it wasn't like planned. Your opponent didn't have to work for it. It was just like, oh, there's a zone left. All right, bye-bye, Jorah.
Splat.
And it's just like, you're gone. Yeah, and like, yeah, okay, maybe it didn't happen more than like 60%, 40% of the time. Like, you were odds on to pass. It's a 6+ test or whatever. But like, it was still worth it. It was always worth it for your opponent because they got nothing better to do with the zone. So they're gonna take a punt and off you trot way too often. Now it's just gonna happen way less often.
I always used to set it.
Before he got any other buffs.
I always used to set it up with taking letters anyway and dropping a panic token on his head, because it was an easy way of getting a victory point that way, and it was more secure. But yeah, 6 movement is way bigger than people realise as well. 6 movement is used to be, should we say, in the old game modes, very important, and it means he doesn't just get killed by direwolves anymore. He can actually run away from them, because direwolves literally used to outrun Jorah, and if they ever got into combat with him, probably kill him. Now they don't. Not as easily anyway. The scout opening ability as well, changing to long range, makes a lot more sense, to be honest. I always thought it was a bit dumb that his ability was short range, because it made him have to get stuck in, and then like the best way to run Targ cavalry forces in the olden days used to be running them in a big block where everything was really close, and then your free maneuvers, you could maneuver around and do things, whereas the enemy couldn't maneuver as easily. And that is completely counter to what Dothraki should be doing, which is actually running around in big loops and running around, and none of that. If you just run in a big block,
just a straight in the front cavalry charge. That's what you do. Didn't you learn anything from the Battle of Winterfell?
Oh, you're right.
Opponent
actually,
stands in front of you, right?
And you just charge.
Just run at them.
Yeah.
Until you die, and then you come running back.
Yeah,
that's how it works. That's how cavalry work.
That's how cavalry work.
That's how cavalry work in A Song of Ice and Fire.
It is. Precision, reroll attack dice. Precision is, broadly speaking, better. Obviously, he's got a bit of a change with crit blow. It is broadly speaking a lot better. The interaction with crit blow has meant that it's not just that ridiculously oppressive thing that it used to be. No Sworn Swords.
That was crit blow. That was crit blow's rule. That wasn't precision's rule.
It was.
It was like, I have precision, and if I'm and sorry, I have crit blow. That's what you wanted, and if you were lucky, you could sprinkle precision on top, and it just became really, really good. It wasn't that precision was good and crit blow made it better. No, crit blow was good and precision made it a bit better.
Definitely. Precision is really good now, though. Like, really good.
But this guy, still 3 points.
Yeah.
But we're getting rid of lower activation costs, right?
We are getting rid of low activation costs. Yeah. Totally. Anyway, we'll move on to the most controversial.
He can't be killed by Axel Florent anymore. I think that's quite important.
Mm-hmm.
When Varys goes away, if Axel still has his ability, then he's like oppressive to anything that has 2 wounds. If the Watch Marshal still has 2 wounds, then Axel's gonna absolutely screw the Night's Watch.
Yeah.
Jorah's been made safe by gaining a 3rd wound.
Mm-hmm. We move on to the most controversial of changes, which is the neutrals. We see Vargo Hoat first of all. Vargo Hoat, you really want attachments to be in the game, right? You know, these like 2 and 3 point attachments that are all amazing, right? You definitely should be picking them. In fact, we're going to even give you a core unit in one of the armies which gets attachments for free. So you're going to take all these really interesting, cool attachments. So what we're also going to do is introduce Vargo Hoat into the game. Like, the current take on this is that everyone went, yeah, attachments are cool, and they scrolled down to the bottom of here and went, oh wait, the counter to attachments is an attachment, and it's almost guaranteed if you can set it up.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, he's called the GOAT for a reason.
Yeah.
Greatest of all time, mate. Right there.
Yeah.
That guy. If attachments become viable, then there's your neutral spam. There's that neutral thing that just appears in all armies.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't quite seem to be able to get neutrals right. There's always something where they're like, oh, this will be fun. Let's make this fun character. He's fun and oh shit, he's everywhere. Every single army's got him. But wait, he was just fun. Nope, he was way good. He looks good. Yeah.
He's really good for 2 points.
Field Vargo Hope. Yep. You don't like other people having attachments? Field Vargo Hope. You want to field mummers? Field Vargo Hope.
We haven't seen his commander version though. So we'll have to see what his commander version's like. But for 2 points, like, expending a weaken to just kill an infantry attachment, there's no reroll. It's just a straight you are dead. And let's just take into account, weaken tokens are not looking like they're going to be harder to put out. The tactics board hasn't changed, which is the predominant way to put them out. Most of the units that put out weaken tokens, we haven't seen them get changed, which look into the Bloody Mama Zorse Riders, they still put out weakened. The Bloody Mama Skirmishers still put out weakened. All of the other things we see put out weakened now in the game, there's literally objectives that put out weakened now. You weaken an enemy unit on an objective in the game. This guy, even if you put him into the game right now, he'd be good. But the reason he'd suck is because there wouldn't be that many attachments. But by God, you'd kill every commander with him. You put him into the game
Francesco says his weakness is the 2-list format, right? So presumably what he's saying there is you have Vargo, but your opponent's got one list that doesn't have any attachments in, so they field that against you. But actually, I'm just going to say that right back at you. His strength is the 2-list format, right? You put Vargo in one of your lists, your opponent sees it and they go, oh my God, I'm not allowed to field any attachments just in case my opponent picks Vargo. They're now like, I have to field this army list because this army is just going to get like assassinated.
So you can just build a counter force as your second list. You can just build a counter list.
I'm not I'm over exaggerating as always. Love to over exaggerate, but like I don't think that the two, like what your opponent sees as, might see as, he's got Vargo, I can make him waste 2 points. Like you also have to see from the other perspective, which is he has Vargo, I couldn't possibly field him, couldn't possibly field these high value attachments anymore. So one of my lists is dead. I can't possibly put this watch captain onto the board because he's just gonna die. But like Vargo looks good. Like
Yeah.
character, attachment, worthwhile. Gonna see 4 big ticks. He's neutral. There's your negative.
Yeah.
He's gonna be everywhere. Like if he's too good, he's everywhere.
And for 2 points, it's not just this like putting weaken on units, killing things. It's not just that. He comes with vicious as well. Like vicious on the whole was devalued slightly because panic tests on the whole have gone down in value. But my god, I can see you running Vargo Hote in great modern Greyjoys. I can see Vargo Hote being run in Lannisters. Jesus, man. Yeah. Imagine Vargo Hote on Halberdiers when they charge you in the flank, you then weaken them and kill their attachment before they actually get to make their attack. That would be hilarious.
Yeah. I'm just gonna turn to face you, kill you, and then just go and Halberdiers do 2 wounds. But I didn't really care about that part because all the other stuff was absolutely amazing. Yeah. But I did just cost 8 points, so
exactly.
Let's not worry about it.
Exactly.
Let's not worry about it. I'm 8 points.
I'm a 5th of my army list. Right, Jaqen is weird. We haven't seen many influence abilities, so it's virtually impossible to evaluate his top ability. But here's a clue: if there are good influence abilities, let's take an example like a Caitlyn in the game, and we know ranks are a thing. So Caitlyn's ability to make you always strike at your top ranks. If you're going to have this slow degradation, which is what they seem to want, Jaqen's going to be good because it gives you a Caitlyn in your own army. You're going to be hitting on 3 ranks as if you were 1. All of a sudden, everyone's berserkers. Okay, so there's one thing with Jaqen. Other influences, things like making units R'hllor, that could be super useful for R'hllor style things like Selyse and Shireen, as we know it. Axel Florent, similar kind of thing. Imagine Jaqen with Axel. You 2 units that are now marked, and if they activate, taking auto wounds. All of these things exist, but until we've seen them in the new changes, we can't possibly evaluate Jaqen. So we have to wait.
The first look is not the influences that you can buy, but the Commander NCU influences that you would desperately want to replicate.
Yeah.
So you're talking about
Courtney
in current. You're talking about Axel, as you mentioned, but my God, Courtney Penrose! Imagine doubling Courtney Penrose.
You can't influence the same unit twice though, so it's you'd have to spread the influences.
But I can cover 2 of your army. I can cover 2 of your army, and you're not allowed to do anything with them. Otherwise, I heal.
Yeah. Yeah. Bowen copying Bowen, just giving copying Corrin, giving everything +1 movement and +1 dice. So much for being less killy. So yeah. The name given, he gives an infantry unit precision on its melee attacks. I'm so glad they added melee attacks into that, because the last time they forgot to add the word melee attack into it was when they did it with steer, and it made it ridiculous. See, there's a nerf I would have liked to see. Make steer worse, please. Steer NCU anyway.
Oh, don't worry, that one's coming.
I know,
right?
That
one's so bad that they don't want to show you yet. Like
I know. This is the best of
He's going in the bin. He's that bad. I
know. Anyway,
don't forget Mickey, right? I'm gonna absolutely call him out here, right?
Go on.
This is the Brett update, and Brett hates free folk.
That's true, actually.
He hates steer, and he hates trappers. So I'm pretty sure that he's whispered in a lot of ears to get these things absolutely nerfed.
And that's why Night's Watch is so strong, by the way, with the changes that you've seen, because Brett can't beat free folk, so he just rather than learn to be a better player, because he already comes to you to write his lists, right? In case anyone didn't know, Carlo did actually help Brett write his lists for the tournament in the US that recently just went ahead.
Hey! And I've done that for many players.
Yeah, did Lord Commander Bob also do that as well? Wasn't the final 4 lists pitted that you built, basically? Anyway, we won't get into that.
I'm a list writing specialist. What can I say?
Yeah.
You can buy me for the cheap value of free.
Yes. But precision on a friendly melee attack is really good, especially with the buff to precision. I'm glad they limited it to infantry as well. Yeah, it's Jaqen's good. I think Jaqen's good for 4 points, but it obviously depends on what we see. Lastly, we move on to the bloody Mama Zorse Riders, who aren't. Unfortunately, my filtering of my cropping has meant I can't scroll down any further on the window. So what I will do is I will.
They don't exist.
They
You
don't
can't see
exist.
them.
Let's pretend they don't exist. And should we just move on? Yeah, done.
They strong.
They
Stay
real
strong.
strong. They real strong. Man, they real strong. There we go.
So you know when they couldn't sell their Zorse boxes? No, not at all. Zorses needed a big buff, and they got a big buff.
Understatement of the year.
They got some good stuff. They
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 look.
seem very strong. Like, I do think lots of people have said it. Like, so Targaryens are shite, right? So let's let's not worry about them. Targaryens are shite as they were. Maybe we'll see them make them much better. Other than that, across the board, Simon seemed to undervalue how powerful the free cavalry maneuver is, and they seem to have continued to do it. This is the only cavalry unit we've seen so far, I think.
It is. It is.
And this is looking even more powerful than other cavalry units that we have, while we mostly saw units getting worse. So we might start seeing a lot of cavalry. I think that maybe they think that the 2 ranks is worse than it should be in terms of controlling and contesting and stuff like that. But cavalry, that maneuver just matters so much, that it's worth more than the whatever half a point that they seem to be assigning its value as. Because I still feel like that unit would be like 6 points at least if it was infantry.
I tell you what what worries me about this particular unit is not this particular unit. What worries me is what we are going to see in Turley Cavaliers and Knights of Castle Rock, assuming they stay around the 8-point margin in cavalry units, because this is the only unit we've
I'd like
seen.
them both to be 9.
If they are both 9, we'll obviously see where that goes. But if this is what we see at 7 points, that has you're bearing in mind it always has the option to take +1 die and crit blow. So this is rolling 8 dice with crit blow on 3+. This can and is still well within the right to one-shot anything in the game. Still.
You lost 1 wound from panic.
Sure.
So, like 8 with crit blow, not quite the same thing that it was, just because you're going to need 1 more wound. But, yeah, you're right. Like, these guys are dangerous at 7 points. And they're fast at 7 points. They're 6 movement.
The
cavalry,
average hits.
All these things.
The average hits on a reroll that this unit gets is 8.89. Call it 9 hits. Its average hits is 9. That tells you everything you need to know. If you've got a bad defensive save, you are really going to be... You're probably just going to be... They talk about one-shotting unit, which leaves a unit on 1 rank. This is a unit that leaves a unit on 1 rank. It might not necessarily solo kill it.
Because 1 shot is being on 1 rank.
Because 1 shot is being on 1 rank, is what they said, yeah. But this is the thing.
Well known.
It is going to be one-shotting units. And I'm not just talking about raiders,
Yeah.
Because I saw that comment.
Weasel's got you there, buddy.
No, it's not
Those
just raiders.
Cowardly Rangers, they're gone.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't even give a shit if it one-shots raiders.
They are Mama Zorse Rider fodder. That's what those raiders are right now.
Yep. More reason to bring a 4-point unit when a 7-point unit can always delete it. No, obviously it doesn't always delete it. The point is that even against, if there's a vulnerable token out, and you're talking a unit with a 4+ save, your average wounds is about 7. Average. That's before you take into account defending losering abilities. Defenders, if you're hitting in the flank, you're talking about raising that total wound up to 8. You're giving a -1 on the panic test, and they've lost all abilities. So they're not even going to be doing anything back. They're not going to have any of these panic fails, like saves and things. All your attachments disappear. That's the thing. All your attachments you just paid for just disappeared. So, I don't know.
The good thing I already own 2 boxes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And what as I said, what scares me the most is not the change to the Zorse riders on their own. It's knowing that Lance Cavalry is in the game, and if they are supposed to be heavy cavalry in relation to the Bloody Mama's Zorse riders, then what the hell is heavy cavalry going to look like in a game where you should be killing less?
At least they didn't get the Screamer code though, right? So
At least
we're
they
all
don't
good.
get that. Yeah.
We're all good.
At least they don't get that.
Wonder what they'll look like with Drogo in them. Well, you know, Drogo current Commander Drogo attachment is interesting. We'll see what he's allowed to be.
We need to see Lance Cavalry, don't we? We really need to see Lance Cavalry, because the game is dominated by them at the moment.
All cards subject to change before final release. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Arrakis. I'm sure they're listening right now and they're gone, oh my god, we've done too much. Zorse Riders, quick! Change them.
Again, I don't how you can. I don't understand how in a game where you make the game less killy and you make a unit that was underpowered in its previous iteration, that was then seen fairly balanced in the new version of the game, and you've somehow made it better in a game where it should have been balanced. I don't know. That's just me, maybe.
Mickey, for a bit of context, Mickey has recently been playing Zorse Riders in their current form.
Yeah,
and
they're
not
not
doing
bad.
terribly.
They're not
Not
bad,
doing terribly.
actually.
And I have actually been fielding Zorse Riders in Baratheons in general for quite a while because I actually think that they're better than Champions of the Stag. Like, I'd rather have Zorse Riders in their current terrible damage output for 7 than I would rather have than Champions of the Stag for 10. I'll take them all day. I'll take those guys all day. I'll take them for 8 points with I'll take them for 8 points with the current Dragonstone Noble attachment.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
please.
Yeah, please. Definitely.
Yes, please. Assuming Dragonstone Noble doesn't change, but you know.
Yeah, well, everything's subject to change.
Anyway.
Yes, we finally got there. That's the end of the changes. We've talked about them.
They're all interesting.
The problem is,
They're interesting.
You said it before.
They're a snapshot.
They're a snapshot because we don't know the full context of where we're going. But there's some clear outliers there. There's some clear outliers like Vargo, like the Bloody Mama Zorse Riders, that indicate things in the future, indicate other things, but more importantly, just from the changes we've seen, it's like, that's clearly good, that clearly isn't good. Just from the changes we've seen. I really think we will have to see how this goes. We will see.
From the things on that page, you know what I'm just thinking? From the things literally on that page right there, I'm thinking, they used to think, okay, so neutrals, they don't have as many choices as everybody else, but they have the most powerful tactics deck. I think they've actually flipped it on its head now and they've gone, you know what? Give them the most powerful units in the whole game. So everybody else is only allowed 50% of them, but they're allowed all of them. But let's give them a weak tactics deck. That would be an interesting flip and might see neutral fortunes change. But at the moment, from what's on that page, we'll see a lot of neutral use in a lot of factions.
Yes. Which very much is like, I don't know, it feels like it plays away from what they wanted. I think they want neutrals to be a flavor in other factions. Whereas if you've like Targs pre Hero Box 1, right? Targs were 20% of neutrals and 20% 20 points of whatever else you can afford. You know, it wasn't 20 points of Targs and 20 points of whatever, or 40 points of Targs. It was very much 20 points of neutrals.
It was 20 points of neutral units, a couple of Targaryen units, and then just some Targaryen NCUs, because the NCUs weren't that much worse than the neutral NCUs, but your units were that much worse than the neutral units, so you just filled your army with neutral units.
Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, Greg's saying there that I'd melt with neutrals ranked higher than free folk. I would, except on the TTS scene, neutrals I play, so it wouldn't bother me. I play neutrals, Baratheons, free folk, and that's about it on TTS.
Neutrals have actually recently fallen in the rankings. They're not like actual imposition, but they're almost exactly last with the Baratheons.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Yeah, minus 42 for neutrals, minus 47 for Baratheons. That's they're a lot closer to last than they were when Targaryens were like a minus 100. and the neutrals used to be like -30. So, you know, like neutrals are slowly, very slowly, because they almost never get played, almost never get results submitted. Very, very slowly working their way into last place, which is probably where they deserve to be.
Someone makes a very good point there. Someone who clearly is understanding of how game balance works. If the neutrals got a buff, shouldn't free folk as well? Well, you know, you'd think so, right? No.
Don't say that to a free folk player.
No. I don't. I mean, as I said, I don't want to just get onto this gravy train again, but I do think free folk needed a nerf. I'm not under no illusion that we needed to be nerfed in some way. But it's not the nerf
that's
anyone
when you know
wanted.
you've got him, because he says me and
No,
and
free
my
folk
beautiful
players.
free folk, the
Yeah.
beautiful free folk. Whereas I just talk about factions as this thing that I play with. He is free folk. He loves free folk. They are him, and he is them. And
I
the
only own
way
a
he
free folk
sees the
faction.
game,
Unlike somebody here, Carlo, who buys literally everything under the sun. You know, some of
or
us have got to
wins
work
them.
for a living. So can't afford to buy everything, single thing of plastic. So yeah, no. I'm going to own Greyjoys anyway. I've already pre-ordered all my Greyjoys, so if free folk are absolute dog shit tier, it doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that, as always the case, and it's always bothered me, you know, neutrals and Baratheons being as bad as they are really bothers me.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Anything being away from, like, significantly away from the curve is annoying. Because you don't like cutting people off from and factions away from the game.
Yeah.
All right then. So we are actually finally come to stats. Going to talk about some tournaments. Then we're going to talk about some new tournament stuff in a second. So tournaments. There's a tournament ended, right? It was Wolves Howling. Yeah.
Wolves Howling isn't quite over. Some of the games in the 5th round are still going on because of Christmas. It's been extended. Otherwise, the deadline should have been at the weekend, I think.
Who celebrates Christmas?
Yeah.
Who celebrates? I don't know. Who celebrates Christmas? No. I think you're basically unobtainable, right?
Not unobtainable in an ELO tournament.
You are though, because
it's possible. I don't think Sajmaj playing against. Is he playing against Bloodraven? I think. Yeah.
Sajmaj versus Bloodraven.
Yeah, I don't think that they can score more than 4 points, which is what's needed.
Well, at best it would be Roderick versus Ramsey, right? Because Tywin's rating's still absolutely trashed. And
yeah,
Roderick's
so actually,
Ramsey's...
I think the best thing, the highest amount of points would be Bloodraven winning with Tywin against Sajmaj. Against Roderick, against Sajmaj. But he has to come from further behind. He needs to score even more points. But I think that is possibly the only situation that can win.
4.8, give or take the smaller numbers. 4.8, is that possible? What ELO difference would that have to be to make it a 4.8 difference? I've got the document somewhere saved.
200, maybe, off the top of my head. I don't know. I had a look. It's unlikely. I'll tell you why it's also unlikely. It's unlikely because it's a really interesting. This tournament's really actually come out as a really interesting way to discuss ELO and its effect on the event. There are some really good things that have happened and some not perfect things, but they're kind of things that just happen and things that exist. So I am currently sat in first, having used pretty much the lowest ranked commander in the game for majority of the tournament. I've used Stannis, 1000th Lord Commander, who is the bottom ranked commander.
Yep.
And I have won 4 out of 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
I actually lost my very first game to Sajmaj, who will, if he wins his last game, probably end up 3rd. Now that's very interesting because if Sajmaj wins his last game, he will actually have won 5 out of 5 games with a significantly higher rated commander, and yet won't have won the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
It's also quite interesting. One of the slightly negative things that's happened is you'll see that Deoxys is currently sat in second, just a fraction of a few points below me. Deoxys has also won 4 out of 5 games with a relatively low-rated commander each time. Not quite as low as the commander that I have won with, which is why my score's higher.
Mm-hmm.
But me and Deoxys, because of the way that we both came to this position, we've never played each other.
Yes.
So that is unfortunate that I am above Deoxys, but I never had to play Deoxys just because of the way that the pairing happened. It's also sort of an effect which people sometimes talk about, which is kind of called like submarining, where you lose early in the tournament and then you get paired against players from lower down, and that allows you to catapult yourself back up. I lost in the very first round and therefore have played weaker players throughout the tournament, and that's allowed me to jump back up into the event. That is a bigger effect because each round I can score more than 3 points. Very interesting. Deoxys, the other person he lost to, is he also lost to Sajmaj. Sajmaj, running a significantly higher rated commander than everybody else up at the top of the event, has been winning games, beating players, but not scoring enough points because he's got too powerful a commander. You're not allowed to win this event with Starks as long as bottom rated commanders are being fielded.
Yep.
That's the moral of the story. If Sajmaj wanted to win, he might still come second, might come third, but 5 out of 5 wins is not enough with a high rated commander.
Mm-hmm.
If players like myself and Deoxys go 4 out of 5 with bottom rated commander in the game.
Interestingly, even if Sizemaj wins, they're about 100 rating between Tywin and Roderick at the moment. I think it's like 110, give or take. Assuming they take the numbers for about 100 difference.
Yeah.
That would mean that if Sizemaj wins, he wins 2.25 points roughly. So it would only take him to 13.5, call it, which would put him third. And if Bloodraven wins, he can win. Assuming the difference is still 100 when they play the game, it will be just over 4 points that he gets for winning. So it'll be on 14.7. So unless that raises significantly the difference between the two, which is unlikely, you've won.
Yeah.
Basically, you've won the tournament.
So me and Deoxys have been winning about 4 points every round because we've been playing roughly 100 rated-ish commanders below our opponents nearly every round. We both have one round where we lost, but scored just over a point. That's how we achieve our score without having won 5 games. Up there are other players who've done similar-ish things. And I guess the real unfortunate thing, and is a reality, is that when Deoxys picked Jorah and Dario, they were probably lower rated than when I picked Stannis. It depends exactly when he picked them.
I don't know. Stannis has been pretty bad for a
to do with the
while.
meteoric rise of Targaryens because of Mother of Dragons is actually the reason why Deoxys has less points than me. I would say that if this tournament happened before Mother of Dragons came out, then mine and Deoxys' positions would be flipped. He would have scored more points for Jorah Dario than I would have for Stannis Renly.
Yeah. But I mean, that unfortunately is the cookie crumbling on ELO events. You know, you need to have a look at.
That's the live effect of ELO being constantly in flux, as opposed to being like any kind of fixed position, and is the reality of Mother of Dragons having such a monumental impact on the ratings like nothing else we've ever seen before. Mother of Dragons is very close to becoming the 3rd rated commander in the game. She's nipping at the heels of High Sparrow.
Yeah, she's 109 points right now, and Sparrow's 152. And then Rob and Howland are sitting up at 200. 197, 198, respectively. Yeah, Daenerys is comfortably cementing herself in the top 3 there, which is crazy when you think about it.
And single-handedly bringing Targaryens up to be in the middle of the pack, and as a faction as a whole, never mind as an individual commander.
This is the first time we've seen this. Look at this big boy. Belwas is in at 16th place. Because he's got a positive score, and it's not insignificant. But it shows you it's crazy, that, isn't it? You got the top tier, which is everything around about 100. So I'm going to say that's Harmer at 87, Joffrey 91, Styr 96, Tyrion 98, Daenerys 109, High Sparrow 152, Rob and Howland 200. Then you've got Mance 75, Ramsey down at 60, Dario 53. These are all Stark versions. Vargo as well, Stark. Carried by the fact there's a lack of data for them. By the Howland and Rob. Rattleshirt, all of the free folk ones being sat there again because of the relatively high number of free folk, with the high free folk statistics and the high rating that they have. And then really, you only move out of those mainstay kind of commander choices when you hit down at Roos, down at 18th place, but he's down at 22. You know, the difference here is negligible. He's like what we refer to as like almost balanced. And you know, Courtney Baratheons, it just shows you how badly they've been screwed over. Do you remember when Courtney was third at plus 100?
Yes.
He's down at 18.
Yeah. That's because half of your rating comes from yourself, half of your rating comes from your faction. You know, Courtney as himself didn't change, but the Baratheons as a faction got absolutely nuked. So, you know, they went, you know, he's still plus 68, but he used to exist inside Baratheons who were positive 20 or something like that, and now he exists inside Baratheons that are minus 40.
But even
plus, I mean, look at that result history. He's lost all his recent games, so that doesn't help. He's been losing a lot.
Yeah. Baratheon's just mad.
Anyway.
Need to fix it. Right. So, I
think I would actually be, you know, of the people who are, you know, still around, quite a lot of people in chat today and stuff like that and watching, but, you know, people starting to turn away. We've been running for a long time. But anybody who wants to send me their feelings, who entered Wolves Howling and wants to tell me anything that I might not have considered about the event, do you know what I mean? Like, I do not believe that the ELO format is perfect. And I'm not just looking for people to say, oh, I like the ELO format. Do you know what I mean? Like, sure, I've seen a decent amount of feedback of people saying, I like this format. I think a lot of people think that it's less competitive, which is fair enough. You know what I mean? Like, people don't believe it's fully competitive. Personally, I actually believe it's more competitive. In that it's more based on player skill, but I understand that there's a lot of gaminess to it at the moment, and there's a lot of the system does favor me specifically and people who are very in tune with the site, because there is a big advantage to understanding the ELO system very, very well. When you understand the ELO system very, very well, I've tried to make it as clear as possible to people how it works, but intrinsically, when you understand it, you understand how it's going to affect you in the tournament. But I would be really happy to hear what people thought. If there's anything that I sort of missed about the fact that they sort of felt that they picked this thing and it didn't quite work out the way they thought it would, I'd be more than happy to hear that kind of feedback, because I do want to improve it. I do think that it's not quite perfect. Maybe the way it pairs needs to be slightly different or something like that. But yeah, so you know, the floor is open. If people want to tell me anything burning, I'll listen.
Yeah, cool. Other tournaments have run. That's pretty much it. The Patreon Cup ended, didn't it? Although that was kind of already over last week when we mentioned it. Another ELO event, and you won that one, strangely enough. 3 wins out of 3, I think.
Okay. There's a bit of an advantage because I understand the system.
Yep. Again, same thing.
It is almost noteworthy. I won that one with Targaryens. That is, I know people have talked about blah 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 blah. I won this, I won that, whatever. That is the first ever recorded Targaryen victory on the stat site. That's the first time they ever entered the Hall of Champions. 6 of the 7 factions are now represented as tournament winners. Neutrals have still never won a tournament, and Targaryens have never won a tournament that wasn't balanced against their ELO.
Yep. Simple as that. Griffin also won the Battle of the Whispering Sound. Oh, we talked about that. It must have just been closed off. And the French TTS Masters we talked about. Yeah,
it's because they were actually ordered by what date the tournament was supposed to finish, and the and the Patreon Cup was supposed to finish ages ago.
Yeah, definitely.
But it just overran.
All right, so that leads us into talking about the future stuff, which is obviously the World Cup. The World Cup
Yeah.
where we are. I still need to sort my stuff out for this actually. We are still looking at a good number of players. We're talking about 70 players across the two events. 70 plus
Yeah,
players.
70, 80, something like that.
Yeah. So we'll get that sorted. Have you had any more movement on the Aussies? Or not yet?
Pretty much a final no from whether or not the Aussies could get together enough interest. So those people, I asked them a couple of weeks ago, or whatever, which regional they would prefer to be in, and they will be, they're not being like split across the regions or anything. They will be entering the regions. They will be entering EU and NA by their own choice. So there will be two big regionals now, which will. I don't know, based on their current sizing, like purely off the top of my head, probably going to be like 9 EU qualifying spots and 7 US. It could be as big as 10 and 6, but it's probably going to be 9 and 7. We'll see how the exact numbers work out, but that will be based on how many entrants each region has and the specific average ranking of the entrants.
Yep.
I will try and be completely transparent with that once I have final numbers as to how they got calculated. There is a calculation which you don't want me to go into because, as always, I made the maths more complicated than it needed to be. So,
I think I understood it when I looked at it last, when I had to do. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's annoyingly complicated.
He pretends he understands.
I know, I do. I think I do understand it. It's all about average rating and the square root of this, that, and the other, if I remember rightly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some terms in there that I just made up.
Yeah.
Went, yeah. Let's square root that.
Anyway,
and, put some brackets in and. Yeah.
Anyway, we got sidetracked from what we were going to do. Oh well, we've done this in the end.
We're actually going to talk about game modes.
We are going to talk about game modes.
Week.
You know what? Do it next week.
It's probably. We'll see tomorrow. We'll see what happens. I don't think we're going to see much more from CMON, right? I think they.
Not this year.
It's Christmas. It's Christmas. Maybe they're on a break. Maybe they'll come back in January. Stuff like that. I think they've shown us what they want to show us, and we might have to wait. I'd love to see some more things on Tuesday, etc., etc. But us still having something to talk about next week, particularly in the exact lead up to the World Cup, will be great. We'll be talking about the game modes. Those who don't know, we will be using the new game modes in the World Cup. And next week on Tourney Ground, we'll go through them all.
Yep, definitely. So yeah, we'll talk about the game modes next week. We'll talk about, if there are any, of course, any further updates. It is my birthday tomorrow, so I'm really hoping that they actually release an update tomorrow, because it would be a nice birthday treat. Ideally with, like, I don't know, give me Steer being nerfed and Thens being made better. There you go. There's my ask to Simon. Show me what Thens look like and tell me that Steer's been nerfed and how he's been nerfed.
Incoming crapper nerf into next century. Thens stay the same, and the entire faction is held up by the crutch of Styre. Just what you want it.
Lee Teddy's also just said there, found out earlier today, that ETC, the European Team Championship, is looking likely to be cancelled again in 2021. Yes. I mean, is that a surprise to anybody? It's not a surprise to me.
It was like supposed to be in the summer. You'd hope that maybe they could still put things together 6 months from now, but yeah, I mean, it's better than indecision, I guess. It's the worst possible if people do and don't know whether or not it's going to go ahead until the last minute.
Well, I mean, let's put it like this: international travel is still rocky, right? It's only from the UK.
Well, Maggie, be honest. The UK's been banned from everywhere.
Exactly. Didn't France?
The rest of Europe can play against each other, but we got banned. We're not allowed.
France has said they've reopened the borders, haven't they? But only marginally or whatever. I don't know anymore. But the next time, anyway, guys, by the next time you'll see us, we won't be coming you live from Europe. We'll be coming you live from the UK, Britain, standing alone. Desperately trying to do its own.
We're leaving Europe, Mickey. We're leaving the European Union. We're still part of Europe.
I know.
People don't even get that, right?
I know.
No. All the people who voted for Brexit don't seem to work out that we didn't actually leave. We're still stuck.
I'm very aware of what it means, but let's be honest, I'm also very, very aware that they might decide to try and put a big like separator in the English Channel and literally push us apart like a hand pump. I can imagine a guy sitting there doing that.
I'd get rid of us if I was them.
Yeah.
I'd never have anything to do with us anymore.
Well,
so...
don't you know they bombed us? It's called virus bombing. Awkward. Wow. Yeah, no, yeah. We're virus bombing everywhere else at the moment. No, yeah. So we'll catch you next week, guys. We'll see what else has been kind of announced. We'll see if there's anything update-wise to bring you. Otherwise, we'll talk about game modes and we'll just chill and have a nice time. As always, guys, I hope you have a lovely new year, and we will see you in 2021.
After this shithole's over.
Oh,
have a nice new year.
Till next one, boys.